In an unstable and often violent world, there is a powerful attraction to the idea of a hero battling oppression and fighting against the injustices in daily life. In fact, it is not something specific, but an idea that has always been among the humanity. The figure of a savior who fights for us and protects us against any evil. It sounds attractive, right? Who has not imagined having superpowers and facing their nightmares? Without a doubt, it is a desire that lies in the imagination of all people, and in a way, could have been a reality in the past. Today, we will travel to Czechoslovakia, more concretely during the Second World War. This country has been devastated by war when the Germans descended upon it and subjected population to cruel oppression. This is where our story takes place. The birth of a superhero with powers who supposedly appeared out of nowhere to rise up against the cruelty of the Nazis. A story that has become a legend and that captivates and stirs that part of our soul that needs the presence of a savior in our lives. The bloody fighting that was taking place all over the European continent during World War II inevitably came to Czechoslovakia. The Nazis occupied the country between the years from 1938 to 1945. And the horrible conditions this meant for the people were everything you might expect from Hitler's ruthless invading forces. They also took advantage of its military capabilities as the country was a great producer of tanks, weapons, and artillery. All through this, the Czech people were subjected to countless cruelties, offenses, and human rights abuses, and the occupying Nazi forces in Czechoslovakia were quick to deal out death to those who would dare to oppose them. In the middle of such misfortune, a small ray of hope shone, although it was not forever. A man named Edvard Beneš had managed to keep a functioning government in exile for the country, and a resistance movement loyal to Beneš took hold against the Nazis, often engaging in guerrilla maneuvers against the enemy. But things went wrong again on May 27, 1942, with the arrival of what was known as Operation Anthropoid, which caused one of the most vicious and brutal reprisals in the entire war. Consequently, Hitler ordered the murder of 10,000 Czech citizens and the total destruction of the villages of Lednice and Ležáky, whose citizens over the age of 16 were mercilessly killed, and the rest of the citizens sent to concentration camps. In general, these were very dark times for the Czech people. But don't lose hope. Despite those facts, it was somewhere around this time when the people of Czechoslovakia were lost in despair, without hope, and with their villages in ruins, that a curious, enigmatic stranger began to make his presence known. Rumors began to circulate of a shadowy figure lurking in the shadows, darkened alleyways, and rooftops of Prague. It was a ghostly-looking man dressed in black and wearing a strange mask with very bright red eyes. He was said to have the ability to jump superhumanly, and to cross rooftops, jump on high-speed trains, and even climb buildings. Does that sound familiar to you? Could it be the Spider-Man of Second World War? Let's continue with the story. It was even said that he could fly effortlessly, producing a strange supernatural whistle. This extraordinary ability led him to be nicknamed Perak, or literally Springer, or Springman, from the Czech spring. Thanks to this, the character was impossible to be followed or captured. At first, Perak was seen by the populace as a dangerous, almost demonic figure to be feared. The first versions of the legend tell that this being appeared out of nowhere, terrorizing and chasing people. It was even speculated that he was capable of killing and raping citizens, generating a fear that gradually spread among the people. As a consequence, people began avoiding going out at night or refusing to work at night at weapons factories, causing a negative impact in the production of Nazi weapons. However, this image as a sinister and diabolical boogeyman quickly changed. Word began to spread that Perak was starting to turn his attention on the German occupying forces, sabotaging their equipment and leaping from the shadows to cut enemies' throats without a trace. It is also rumored that he was immune to bullets when the Nazis shot him, and some accounts tell that these bullets ricocheted off him, hitting them and ending their lives. Although most people speak of him as a stealthy and invisible hero, Perak was known to be very adept at hand-to-hand combat and knife fighting and good at explosive materials. He was also known to allegedly steal secret Nazi documents, such as the plans to an unspecified German secret weapon from the CKD factory in Vysočany. Thanks to all this information, there is no doubt that he looks like a real superhero from some current comic. Although it must be admitted that Perak did not go unnoticed either. He was said to leave bold and taunting anti-Nazi graffiti on walls or gates in normally inaccessible places, further strengthening his legend. This growing image of him as a sort of superhero for the Czech people led to Perak evolving to be a potent symbol of resistance against the Nazi regime, a true savior for the people. Perak's name sounded everywhere, and there came a point where almost all the problems, setbacks, accidents, or deaths the Germans suffered were attributed to Springman. It was like a ray of hope amid so much suffering and misfortune. But the fame his legend reached began to disappear as suddenly and mysteriously as it had appeared when the war ended. However, it did not disappear from the hearts of the Czech people. In May of 1945, practically as the smoke and dust was still clearing, two Czech cartoonists, Jiří Brdeka and Jiří Trnka, created a 14-minute animated film titled Perak ASS. In it, the headline hero was depicted as a man who maintained an anonymous identity, who was dressed in black and who ventured into the night to fight against the injustices of the Nazis. The Perakovi Další Sudy comic series translated into English as The Other Destinations of Perak. It soon became an icon in popular culture. Nowadays, he remains a very popular character who inspires artists, writers, television shows, movies, theater, and comics. The question that looms over all of this is just who or what Perak was. Over the years, several theories about the reality of this anonymous superhero have been known. On the one hand, it has been suggested that Perak was just an urban legend that circulated among the Czech people to evade the suffering of that time, thus casting a ray of hope on so much misfortune. On the other hand, according to a research in 1960, it was discovered that the legend of jumping figures at night dated back to the 1920s, long before the start of World War II. It was also discovered that, in the face of atheism, members of the Roman Catholic Church met once at Bohemia, a region of Czechoslovakia, to disguise themselves in black suits and become jumping demons in order to scare everyone into piety. But as in all stories, there is always a place for those who defend any event. In this case, there are others who disagree with the speculations mentioned above and who will believe that Perak actually existed in some way, although it is not clear who he might have been. On the one hand, some defend the idea that he was a citizen dissatisfied with the situation he was living at the time, an American secret agent, or a British paratrooper who had taken matters into his own hands. His incredible abilities could be explained because perhaps he could have been an acrobat or gymnast, able to craft special boots, pyrotechnic weapons, and even an armor. It has even been suggested that the sound it makes when flying could be some kind of machinery used to scare or disorient enemies. On the other hand, the most mystical assure that this being really could be a demon, a ghost, or even an alien. The imagination of the human being reaches incredible limits, don't you think so? Even so, the police of the time kept a firm statement that assured that this character never existed. But who could believe such a claim when the police themselves were German? Would it be a strategy not to give hope to the Czech people? Who knows? What is clear is that he is likely to have lived. It should also be pointed out that there's another curious legend that lasted until the early 1900s and took place in the United Kingdom, the legend of Spring-Heeled Jack. It is another curious character who jumped across the roofs with springs attached to his feet and who terrified the residents. In this case, he is not particularly a noble hero, as over the years he has been described as a creature that carried metal claws in his hands, with deep red eyes, and had the ability to spit flames of blue and white from his mouth. Considering this, it seems plausible that, considering the similarities in the apparent use of pyrotechnics, or jumping to attack or evade capture, the stories of Spring-Heeled Jack may very well have influenced those of Perak. After all, even Perak started off as a menacing demonic figure, and the striking similarities between the two are obvious. Is there any grain of truth to the fantastic story of Perak the Springman? If so, who or what was he? The truth is that, thinking about the possibility that in the midst of a so important war, there was a brave superhero who emerged from the darkness to distribute justice. The human being has a strong attraction to imagine or create higher archetypes to calm the previous anguish and despair. We can find it constantly reflected in art, cinema, or comics. And if that figure is similar to us, the easier they will inspire us. Although their origins are unknown or inaccurate, if these ideas help people be happier, we can think of something together and make us feel better. It is preferable to believe that these beings were real and that they watched over our well-being.